Good morning. Sorry, I'm starting. Well, I'm just a minute late. I'll give myself grace. It's been one of those mornings. I feel like I'm rushing, and um, so I'm gonna try and calm down. Try and calm down. Okay. Thank you for joining me here today. Um, Good morning, and welcome to the Daycare Q&A Show. My name is Adrienne Bradley of Thriving Childcare, and today is what is it? August 6th, Wednesday, August 6th. And yeah, can you believe it's a new month? And we are heading into the final months of the year. I say that so often, I really feel stupid saying it, but it's true. It's like this year is just raced by, and we are about to head into the holidays. I don't know if anybody wants to hear that, but with the kids going back to school, um, you know it's coming, and it'll be here before we know it. So anyway, I do want to enjoy the rest of my summer. Um, so I'll push it off too. I'll push it off too. But I have an exciting episode here today. I'm going to get into some of my story, and yeah, I have lots to talk about. This subject of my new book that's going to be coming out. But I know I have some pressing business before we get into all of that. So I wasn't able to print out my notes, so I'm going to be looking at my laptop throughout to stay on point. So excuse me if you see me looking over, and I know, you know what? Maybe I can move my laptop closer, and then I won't have to. Why did I do that? That wasn't good. I'm telling you, it's just one of those days. Um, I'm hitting the wrong things. Let me see if I can get better organized here. Anyway, so as you know, as I have said often, I am in Southern California, and it is hot, y'all. It is hot. Well, to be honest, for those of us who live here, this isn't hot, hot. It's been milder than normal. Normally, it can get up into the hundreds, but so far, I've only seen it do that maybe once so far this season, and like this week they said something like the 90s. But I mean, again, that's kind of where I live. It is in the valley in Southern California, and that's nothing. It can be up and over 110 easily this time of the year. And I don't know if it's coming, a late summer's coming, I don't know, but this is sort of manageable. It's not that bad. I shouldn't have said that out loud because things can change. But today it is supposed to be in the 90s. It's supposed to be hot. That's why I already put on my tank top so I can deal with some of this heat. The dogs are inside, so I say that every week or almost every week, so that you know, if you're in a room listening to this with the kids sleeping, I'm just letting you know my one dog, he can any noise at all, he can go off and start barking. The other one, she's pretty quiet. She probably won't make any noise, but you've been warned, okay? He'll probably startle me, and if you're in a room with kids sleeping, I would hate for him to startle them and wake them up. That's not good. That's not good. Okay. So if you are joining me this morning for the first time, welcome. And if you are coming back, welcome back. If you are watching this on replay, I know I have a couple of episodes that I owe the channel, our channel over on YouTube. But if you are catching this on replay, welcome to you too. Please leave me a comment in the comments below, just to say hi. I'd love to say hi to you back. Yeah, and since I'm using my laptop, typically I use my laptop to make sure I don't miss anybody. in the comments because this dashboard here can be a bit hidden sometimes. But since I'm doing double duty with my notes on my laptop, please leave me a hi or a like over here so maybe I can see it on this dashboard. Hopefully, hopefully. But anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, if you are catching this on replay over on our channel on YouTube, please consider subscribing. It really helps us grow the channel, reach more providers like you. And yeah, I would love it and appreciate it. Plus, you'll get notification when the new episodes go up so you don't miss anything and you can maybe binge watch or binge listen over the weekend or something when you're driving or whenever you have time. All right. So first, let's talk about what's going on in the Thriving Childcare universe. First of all, this episode is sponsored by our planner, the provider planner and organizer. I always go to the wrong side. That is our stripe version behind me there, and we actually have two other covers. But now, especially now, because August is planner month around here. So what that means is it is the best time for you to get your planner. Um, we have a sale on the floral version of the planner. Let me see if I have that version here. No. Oh, I have that version here. Here it is. Here it is. Hopefully you can see it. I have like tons of things sticking out of it, but that is the floral cover. Actually, let me show you. That was the old floral cover. Let me show you the new floral cover. This is the actual new floral cover. Okay. Um, so that is on sale along with the Spanish language version of. It's also a floral cover. It's a little different than that, but it's really pretty too. That version, those two versions are on sale, and you get free shipping with that. So if you want to get your planner now, that would be a really smart thing to do. And I know a lot of people are thinking it's August, Adrian. Why would I get a planner in August when I'm not going to use it till the first of the year? Well, first of all, the planner is undated. So whenever you get it, you can use it for a whole year. So if you get it now, you that is actually the smartest thing to do because it'll allow you to plan for the rest of the year, just like I was talking about earlier. The holidays are coming up, so it'll allow you to plan for the holidays and get all of your themes and projects and everything else and your ideas down now so that when the holidays are upon you, you're not lost. You're not lost and scrambling. But also to transfer any notes that you have from your previous planner into your new planner. That'll give you time, and it's on sale. So this would be the best time to go over and get the planner. I have left a link in the comments below, and you can just click over and go. You can actually flip through the planner and see what it looks like, see all the amazing features that are in the planner. But get your planner now. This is the best time. If you wait till the beginning of the year, you're behind, right? And like I said, you can use this planner throughout the holidays to help you deal with all that chaos. So I'm gonna go to the planner in a minute because I do every week and look and see what's happening this week that you can maybe use for inspiration. But before I do that, I want to tell you to go and check out. Actually, there's two blog posts this week. The first one talks about how to pick your planner. We have a digital. We actually have four versions of the planner. There's a hardcover, a soft cover, an ebook, and a digital planner. So some people like to use their planner on their iPads, and you can do that using the Good Notes feature on your iPad. And it makes it super convenient because you have your planner there along with anything else you use your tablet for. But we also have the print versions as well. So it talks about which version would be best for you. Maybe you are a digital person. I'm a digital person up to that point. I like to use the physical book for my planner, but I'm a digital person on every other platform, I would say, just because I like the convenience of having everything in one place on my phone, and I can reference and get to it if I'm not at home. I don't carry my planner around. Well, typically I don't. Sometimes I do, but I don't typically carry it around. So any notes or anything that would be in the planner wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily have access to it. When I leave, and it's sitting on my desk. So anyway, that post goes into how to decide if you want your planner to be digital or if you want a physical version, the pros and cons of either. And some people use both. Some people use both. So yeah, so check that out. But there's a new post up today that is called "What Happens After Childcare." Let me go back to my notes here. What happens after childcare? Why I closed my daycare and what I did next. And that is what we're going to get into here in this episode today. So, there's a lot of conversation around this issue, and I thought it would be maybe helpful to some providers if I shared my story, um, and how I transitioned from my business to what I'm doing now, and why I'm doing that, and my whole process. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But go over and check out the blog post, whether you're watching this episode live or you're catching this on replay. Please go over and check out the blog post. I've left a link below for you to click over and check it out, because I'll have some more resources and more I was going to say inspiration, information over on the blog post that I may not cover here in this episode. So do go check that out. And while you're there, go ahead and download the Thriving Childcare Roadmap. That is something that I've created for you to help you simplify your systems. Sometimes it's not, it's, we may think we are overwhelmed, and sometimes it's not that we just don't have the right systems in place to manage all the different things we need to do. If you're a childcare provider, I don't have to tell you, you already know how many tasks and things are necessary to run your business. You already know this. But maybe adopting some systems that would help do that better, easier, is the answer. So go over and check out, download the free roadmap, the Thriving Childcare Roadmap, and it'll help you kind of clarify your, not only your childcare vision, but streamline your operations, attract more ideal clients to enroll families in your childcare, and all of that without adding more stress to your plate. All right. You can learn how to scale your business and feel like the CEO of your business, because that's what you are. That's what you are. And we're not about the overwhelmed life. We're just not. We're just not. We're going to resist that until we can resist no more. So anyway, go over and check that out. Download the roadmap. I created that for you. Okay. Um, Finally, I'm still planning the next episode of The Usual Suspects. Excuse me. Um, that is our panel, our monthly panel episode of this podcast. And I have just been, you have to forgive me, I have been so busy lately. I keep looking at certain dates, and then something happens and I need to go back and address that. So before the week is out, I will be scheduling the next episode of The Usual Suspects. And again, that is our panel episode where I bring in other childcare experts, coaches, and people who support us in this industry to get their perspective on what's happening in the industry, maybe forecasting what's coming next, giving some very helpful tips and advice on running our childcare businesses. And so it's very important to me. I loved the first episode we did, but it is time for a new one. So I will let you know as soon as that is scheduled. Okay? It's scheduled to drop. By the way, if you would like to be a guest on the usual suspects, I would love to get your perspective. Whether you are a childcare provider or you're thinking about becoming a childcare provider, one of our first, our first episode, we had a brand new childcare provider on, and she contributed so much to the conversation. So if you would like to be a part of that and share your perspective on maybe a topic that we're going to cover on the show, please click the link. I think I have the link in below. If I don't, I'll come back and drop it. Click the link, go over and fill out our applications. I just ask a few questions about your relationship to childcare business, and yeah, get on the show. I would love to have you there. So check that out. Just fill out our guest application, and we'll get you scheduled on the show. Okay. All right. Now, before we get into my story and some questions related to my story, I want to go to the provider planner. I have it open and look to see what is happening today. Today's the 6th of August. So on the 9th, which, when is the 9th? Let me go look. I want to say that's probably Friday, but I want to be, no, Friday's the 8th. The 9th is Saturday. Okay. So on Saturday is Book Lovers Day. So it's Wednesday, right? So what if you, instead of celebrating that on Saturday, you celebrated it on Friday with the kids and asked them, out of all the books that you have at your childcare business, what is their favorite? What is the one that they love? And maybe get them to express why they love it. This is presuming they have verbal ability and they can tell you why. Or you could share with them what your favorite book is. I had a favorite book. Um, I don't know when I got this book. I don't even know where, but and I'll drop it a link below if you'd like to check it out. But it was this book about this little boy, and people were always telling him that he couldn't do something, that he wasn't big enough and he wasn't old enough, basically, to do the things that he wanted to do. And what was the name of it? Gosh, I can't remember what his name. Someone, someone bigger. No, I'll drop the link below later. But as you can imagine, by the end of the story, he winds up saving the day for so many things that happened, and he didn't need to be someone bigger. He just needed to be him because he could do it. And it's kind of like that story. You remember Finding Nemo, and his father was telling him he couldn't do something because he just wasn't strong enough, big enough, whatever. And he winds up saving the day. And it's all mindset. It's all mindset. So anyway, I fell in love with the story. I fell in love with the story, and I was always reading it to the children. So if I had my business today, and Book Lovers Day came about, and they asked me, well, what is your favorite book, Miss A? It would be Someone Bigger. That's the name of the book. Someone Bigger. That would be my favorite book. And I could tell them why. So find your favorite book, maybe express to the children why, and maybe they'll be willing to share what their favorite story is and why. And maybe it's not a book that you read at the childcare. Maybe it's a book from home. Maybe with the day actually being on Saturday, maybe ask the parents to send the children back on Monday with their favorite book, and you can read it to the rest of the kids. You could share their favorite book. So that would be fun. That would be a good way to share and celebrate Book Lovers Day. And then on the 10th, which is Sunday, you could share this with the parents, is National S'mores Day. So I think I'm going to go in and share that in our other group, the Childcare Chef group. that on Sunday is National S'mores Day, because that might be, we can find a s'mores recipe that we could share on Monday with the kids for snack or something. Or, like I said, you can share it with the parents, and maybe they want to create some s'mores with their kids on Sunday. Parents are always looking for fun things to do. They run out of ideas too. So, um, yeah, maybe you can share that with them. All right, so that's another thing. I've said this before, but that's what the provider planner and organizer is best for, is finding these hidden days that we may or may not know about, and using them as inspiration in our business to find new activities with the kids, or maybe even a new snack. Um, a new project. That's why I have these days in here, because I know that when I was running my childcare, I would get stuck in the same mode of doing the same things. And even though the children changed, there was different children, it can get kind of stale and boring for us too. So trying to find new ways to incorporate different fun things into our program, I think, is one of the best features of using the provider planner and organizer. So again, the link is in the description. Go over and check it out, because now is one of the best times to get your planner to finish out the year strong and get ready for the next year. Okay. All right. Now, um, before I get into my story and into some questions for today, I give this disclaimer every week. Matter of fact, let me scroll up, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay. Um, how this platform, this podcast, the Daycare Q&A Show, the sole reason I wanted to do this was to reach out to fellow providers and to give them some perspective on different things that other providers like myself and my immediate network of providers go through or have gone through, and maybe give a different idea of how to handle situations that we find ourselves in, whether it's tuition matters. That was a big one for me. Policies, difficult parent clients, managing work-life balance, all those things. And the reason is because I know that sometimes I would find myself needing to manage a situation, and I could be tired, overwhelmed, I mean, all the things, and look back on it later and think, I wish I had handled it differently. Maybe I overextended myself. Maybe I over apologized. Maybe I was not sensitive enough. Maybe I didn't see it from my client's perspective. Maybe all those things. And so, um, I wanted this platform to be a space where it maybe gave some foresight to someone who may or may not go through this, or those issues, because some of the providers that were in my network um, didn't go through the same issues I went through, and I didn't go through the same issues they went through. But should you ever, maybe having heard or listened to someone else having gone through that, might help you if you do ever get into those moments. But, and I say this every week, but it is your business. It is absolutely your business. And you know that you are free to run it the way you think is best. So if you hear something here that works for you, great, groovy, that is what it's here for. That's what I am here for today. But if you hear something that does not vibe with you, then please leave it. Take what works and leave the rest. It's probably for someone else, okay? Not everything is for everyone. And I know that, and I'm certainly not telling you what to do. Just trying to provide my perspective on either how I handled something, how I wished I'd handled something, or how someone I know dealt with an issue in the moment. So, with that said, let me get into today's episode because we have a lot to discuss and I don't want to go over. I have too much to do today. I'm telling you, I was um, rushing today and I still have things that I need to get back to, and not the least of which is my phone. My phone is just dying for no reason, and it's fully charged. And you probably don't need to know this, but I gotta go stop procrastinating and take that thing in and figure out what's happening. Okay, so let's get into the episode today. If you read the post, then you know that I'm going to be talking about what I have been posting all week since last week, um, on my page and in my groups about um, maybe thinking of our next chapter. Like, do you do you have plans to run your business, your childcare business, um, forever until you can't anymore? Um, do you plan to just run your business for a few years? Um, I wish I had, I wish I had a copy of it, but excuse me. In my book, The Playbook, I, which one of the really different aspects I would say is that the playbook gets into those types of questions. It asks you not only why are you starting your business, what is your why, and we know we need to know and resonate with that ourselves because this business can be, it can be overwhelming, it can be exhausting, and understanding why you're starting your business and really getting into the mindset that you have for running your business. All of that is very, very important when you're starting off, but also considering what are your plans for your business? What are your future plans? And I'll admit that was not something that I even considered when I was starting my business. I was too busy thinking about starting the business and getting clients and retaining clients and getting more clients and putting in place policies at work and contracts at work and dealing with tuition issues and all of those things. But in 2020, um, I sunsetted my business, and I say sunset for a reason because a lot of times when we say closed our business or if we say retired, we have a certain mindset around that. And I didn't close my business because my business wasn't doing well. Um, I closed my business because it was a choice and something that I had planned to do. I didn't retire per se because I went right into, or I had already been in another business. And honestly, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So I don't know that there will ever be a time where I'm not, where I don't have a business. Maybe I'm not as immersed in the business, but I probably will always have a business. That's just who I am. But in 2020, um, and I will admit that the pandemic, um, not hastened it, but I guess solidified that it was time, because there were a lot of adjustments we had to make during that time, to run our business, to run our childcare. And it just kind of added to everything else that we have to do to run our business. So I made the decision that it was time. But, and if you do, and I hope you do go over and read the blog post from today, um, it was not without a plan. And I'll tell you, it wasn't a perfect plan. It was not a perfect plan. I didn't know the pandemic was coming, and um, at at before the pandemic came, I sort of, and I guess I did even after, but I sort of still had the option to continue with the childcare business until I completely felt ready. But that's what I was saying. The pandemic kind of um, solidified that I was ready to be done. So now it was beyond 20 years that I had run my business. The business had a good reputation in my community. I still had clients, and at the end, even during the pandemic, had to turn away clients when I did make that decision. Um, but let me go back. Let me go back to 2 years prior to 2020. So in that would be 2018, I started this business. I started Thriving Childcare. And I was planning at that time because I knew that the time would come for me to want to feel the need to sunset the childcare. Now, I've spoken before here on the show to say that my reasonings for starting my childcare business were my own, just like moments ago when I talked to you about your business being your business. I didn't have small children or even grandchildren when I started my childcare. That was not my reasoning for starting this business. Believe it or not, it was a suggestion from a friend of mine. And when I dug into it more, I I liked the idea. Um, I still didn't just run with it then. I went back to school, studied child development, got my certificates for first as teacher and then as a director. Um, and then I felt comfortable that maybe I could do this thing. But I had a really good paying corporate job. And it was helping me raise my family and contributing to my household income. And I did not feel comfortable walking away from that. That was hard, benefits of the whole 9 yards. But then I'll say, and I said this for years in my personal circle, that God had a different plan for me, and I don't know how it worked out for the other people I was working with, because what happened was that corporate job, that corporate employer, as they do, decided to make a change. And they went through and got rid of my whole department. They outsourced the whole department. And it was a shock to me and my coworkers at the time. But again, I sort of already had a plan, right? And so I got pushed, and that's how God deals with me. He pushes me. But in the moment, I was like, okay, time to put put this plan into action. Time to do it. And I was blessed because I had been with that business for over a decade, and so I had severance and I had time that I was able to go back and go to school, like I said a moment ago, and really prepare myself for what was going to be my business. So I did that, and I ran the business from its infancy, grew it, and I was so proud. I was so proud that I had taken something that was nothing and turned it into something that people were talking about, something I was known for, something that I was proud of, and that I grew as a person, as a woman, as a businesswoman into. Um, Over the years, I got more confidence. And this is not to say that there weren't trials in the business. There definitely were. I had those difficult clients. I had those difficult moments with children. I had moments that were, you know, very hard. I had things I had to manage that came out of running the childcare in my own family and home. So, but still, the business thrived. Still, the business thrived. And that was my life. It was my life for many, many, many years. And then I started to feel burn. I started to feel the burn. And it was because and I'll tell you, just like I said, I think at the top of the show, sometimes the overwhelm can make us feel like we're ready to to do something different. And putting in systems that help you manage all of that and taking time off can actually maybe give you a different perspective. Maybe you're not done. Maybe you're done with how you're doing it. Maybe that's what's going on, right? But I wasn't taking off enough time. I did take off some time, but I didn't feel comfortable. My clients would leave if I took off, if I took a vacation. And I had other friends and providers that knew better, and they took time off, and they were fine. But I didn't have that confidence then, and then that started to be a pattern, right? So I was working in my business or on my business something like 7 days a week. And so I started, I would say around 2016, 2017, really feeling burned out and tired and not in love with my business anymore because I was overwhelmed and exhausted. And so in 2018, I started planning by starting Thriving Childcare, my exit strategy. And in 2020, I had not completely committed to that being the cutoff, but the pandemic, like I said earlier, kind of just solidified. Okay, this is it. We're going to cut the cord. And I did. But I will be very transparent here. It was not an easy thing to do, even though I had planned um, and had started Thriving Childcare, and Thriving Childcare was growing, and I was proud of that and excited about it too. I still felt a sense of mourning my childcare business that I had basically raised. I used to say to clients, you know, I take care of your children, your baby, but my baby is my business. And I meant that because I had raised this business from nothing, from nothing, from having no toys, because like I said, I didn't have any little kids, from having no toys, from having no contract, no policies, no anything into what it was. And I felt like, okay, I'm going to miss this. I'm scared. Um, like I said, I felt a sense of mourning, like I was losing something. I was losing something, but I was also gaining as well. But um, I did feel this overwhelming sense of loss or impeding loss coming. And I got into and sought therapy because I knew this was going to be a big transition for me. I was not only transitioning completely into something, it wasn't completely new, but it was new ish, a new line of work, um, but also without the the financial security that I knew pretty much knew I had in the childcare business when I was running the childcare business. Now, anyone who knows, anyone who has a childcare knows that it can be a roller coaster. But a lot of businesses, many businesses are like that. But I felt the need to get into some therapy. And I did. And I'm so happy. That was one of the best things that I could have ever done. To be honest, if I was smart enough, I would have done that when I was running my childcare. And I would have had the tools to deal with a lot of those challenging moments that I told you I had. I would have had the tools, or I would have realized that I needed to get the tools to manage all of that much better. Hi, Denitra. Denitra Scott's joined us. Um, but yeah, I got into therapy, and you know what? And I was so fortunate because I got a therapist that I resonated with right off the bat. I know a lot of times that doesn't happen. You have to, it's a trial and error kind of thing. Um, uh, and you might have to go through a few therapists before you get someone who you really resonate with. But that was not me. I we vibed right from the start, and I loved talking to her. This was a safe space. I could talk to her about anything because this was somebody impartial. This was somebody who was looking out for my best interests, and I don't know. It was a godsend. It truly was. And even after I sunsetted the business, I kept on with that therapy. But that's a story for another day. But that was the self care that I needed to feel comfortable making the transition that I made to a completely different line of work. Now, it still is in support of and in adjacent to childcare because, of course, I'm working with childcare providers like you. But it was different. It was different. And with all of that change, being in therapy uh, really, really helped me make that transition. Now, that's not to say that everybody needs therapy. It was my journey, and it helped me so much with that transition. And because I will not lie, I was nervous that it wasn't going to work out, and my friends will tell you it. I was scared it wasn't going to work out, so I kept the childcare stuff because by this time, 20 years down the road, more than 20 years, I had amassed all this stuff, right? I mean, I was having to purge stuff because I had so much childcare stuff, books, boxes of books, uh, toys, outdoor stuff, but a lot of it I clung to, kind of like a safety net. And I was like, okay, if I have to start back up, I don't have to start from nothing again. I will have all this stuff. And I gave myself a year. I gave myself a year. Now, my husband was protesting. He was like, get rid of this stuff. You no longer have this business. Get rid of this stuff. And I was like, nervous. I was stressing. It was like, no, because I don't know. You know what I mean? And at the same time, I don't want to reveal to him that I'm not confident in what I'm doing. So see, there's so many layers to making a transition like this. But that was me. That was just me. Now, I got to that 1 year mark, and I said, okay, this is it. And I donated the books. I had my daughter, she found a bookstore, and we donated books. I think I kept my favorite book for a while just because it was my favorite. But I started to let go of what no longer served me. And that's a term that I learned in therapy. Holding on to things that no longer serve you are not good for you. They are not self care. They are the exact opposite of self care. So I started letting go of things, and I'm not gonna lie, I still have some things to get rid of. And this is 5 years later. But it was just because I didn't take the time to list things. Some things I wanted to sell. Okay, some things were not just pushed out to the curb or dropped off as a donation. But let me go. Let me check these comments. Denitra says, "Therapy helped me as well. You have to let go of the stigma." Yeah. Um, I know that there's a lot of people who, for whatever reason, have this impression of therapy being a sign of weakness. Being in therapy or needing therapy is a sign of weakness. It is absolutely the opposite. It shows a strength for advocating for yourself, for getting, like I said a moment ago, the tools that you need to manage your life. Life is not easy. And that, not just my life, I have friends and family, and life is not easy. But we sometimes can make it harder for ourselves, thinking we have to be this super person. I know that in my posts and a lot of posts, we put up this image of being a superhero. All right. As I said earlier, anyone who is in this business knows how many things they're responsible for, and sometimes it does feel like you need to be a superhero, superwoman, superman to manage it all, because it is a lot, and a lot of people don't realize how much it is. It is a lot, but to envision that we're this superhero sometimes is misleading to ourselves. In other words, we can handle it. We can push through, we can press through the burnout, and we must, because we're this superhuman. We're this superhero. And that's not fair. That's not fair. And it's also not healthy, not self affirming, not self care, all those things. It is not. And getting someone who is your personal cheerleader, personal advocate, professional listener can be game changing. And that's what therapy is. Leave the stigma, like Denitra just said, leave the stigma and look at it as self care. For me, it was the ultimate self care. I wish I had done it 20 years earlier. I wish I had done it when I started the business, because it would have given me that confidence that I told you I built up over those 20 years. It would have given me that way earlier. It would have given me a different perspective. It would have given me um, the confidence. I said that earlier, but the confidence to take the time that I needed off. It would have done so many things. So if you're listening and you're a new provider and you have that available to you, I would say take advantage of it. You can always stop. If it's not for you, just like I said in my disclaimer earlier, if it's not for you, then you can leave it. But I think you will find more benefits in being in therapy than not. We always for what our whole life we've tried to run it, do it all alone, right? Why not? Why not try something different and get the support of someone who is your personal advocate through therapy? I would say do it. Do it. Denisha says it helps to cut through that mindset trash. Yes, it does. I mean, seriously, I have said here on the show, I used to think mindset and all that talk was just so airy fairy. It's like, yeah, okay, mindset. Mindset is at the core of it all, because if you don't believe you can do something, if you don't, it's what you believe that will materialize. All right. A lot of people don't want to hear that word manifest, but what will materialize is what you think you're capable of, what you think you can do, what you think you cannot do. All of that is true because that is what you're going to bring about. And having somebody, like she said, to cut through that trash and get to maybe what the real issue is, right? I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but when I was in high school, you remember high school days? Um, One of the most nerve wracking things you could do is have to change homerooms the first week of school. Okay, so picture this: you not new to the school, but new to the school year, like it's about to happen now. And I was in high school, and I was put in this one homeroom, right? Well, I guess the room got overcrowded. There was too many students in the room, so they would have to shift some students over to other rooms, right? And I was one of those students that had to be moved. And I'm telling you, if you, I know that maybe I seem like this super confident person, but back then I was not, and that was I wanted to cry. That's how nerve wracking that moment was, and I was like, oh my gosh. So not only are you being switched to another room, like you're like, what's the big deal? You're being switched like after the bell. So meaning you're gonna have to walk into this new room alone in front of all these looking eyes, all these other students looking at you. And I was not one of the popular kids. Okay, I wasn't. So walking in this room solo, or I don't know, maybe there were some other kids in that class that had to do it too, but I felt like I was walking in solo. And so I had to do this thing. So I go to this new room and I'm walking in, and I can almost remember this is 1,000 years ago, you guys, but I can almost remember standing outside and not wanting to go in and delaying it as long as I could. So I walk in, and this happens to be the room with all the cool kids, right? So, and I'll get back to how this works into childcare and stuff in a second. But anyway, so I walk in, and immediately from the back of the room, I hear somebody go, ugh. And I wanted to die. I wanted to die. I felt like that scene in The Wizard of Oz, not The Wiz, and well, maybe it's in The Wiz, but not in Wicked, when the witch just melts. I felt like that. Oh my gosh, I wanted to die. Anyway, that was such an impressionable moment for me that I think it carried over into my adulthood in some way. It was just this one moment, right? But maybe it fed into other moments. I don't know. And because I never was in therapy, I didn't ever find out that maybe that was some of um, my confidence issues or something. I don't know. I'll tell you the end of the funny thing that happened regarding that moment in a little while. But in therapy, you can work out what what is really going on with you in those moments. And if I had had that kind of support going into this new business, it was a new business back then, my childcare was a new business, then I think the confidence that I eventually developed would have developed faster. It would have developed sooner. But I want to run through some questions really quick that providers have asked me about my journey, um, because obviously I have not gone back to my childcare business and I don't plan to at this point. But I want to give some hope out there to the providers who have responded to the questions I've been putting up in the groups and in on my Facebook page about maybe thinking about this type of transition. Not necessarily my path exactly, obviously, but um, what's to come? What's the next chapter? When I was profiled in my friend's book, the anthology that she did several years ago, I talked about transitioning into a new chapter, it's okay to do that. Not every chapter in a book, every chapter is different in any book, right? Every chapter is different. And this was a new chapter. And for 20 years of my life, I was a childcare provider. When I'm out in the community now, I'll run into people. I ran into somebody a couple of weeks ago who was a former client of mine who actually had moved out of state. And I ran into him and he said, Miss Adrian. So I'm still Miss Adrian. I'm still Miss Adrian. But Miss Adrian has other facets to her. She has other things she wants to do with her life. And that is okay. That's actually good. Okay? It's okay to give your all to something and then to say, I gave my all. And now it's time for something new, right? Okay, so let me jump into these questions because I really don't want to go too long today. But let me know in the comments if this is something you want to talk about more, you want to dig into more, you want to go deeper, if you are having these types of thoughts. But I want to get into these questions and I'll come back to that. And then I'll come back and tell you how that worked out with my unconfidence moment back in high school. Okay. It says, Adrian, first question, Adrian, how did you know that it was time to move on from running your childcare business? I'm not sure if I'm just burnt out or if I'm truly ready for a change. That last part is so insightful, okay? Because, like I said earlier, it could just be that you are overwhelmed and burnt out, and there's causation for that. Usually, it's because you don't have enough time off. You don't have enough downtime. Remember when I said that in my business was like 24/7 type of thing? Well, it wasn't 24, but it was a 7-day a week thing for sure. I was doing something every day of the week that had something to do with my business, supporting my business, growing my business. And it was too much for this one person thing. For me, it was. If there's somebody out there that says, I got this, I know what I'm doing, I'm running, I'm fine, I'm not talking to you. Okay? Don't come for me. I'm not talking to you. Do you? Okay? But for me, it was, I didn't have enough of that downtime. And I talked to an analyst one time and she said that she had run into a provider that was starting to have complaints from her clients and it was reaching licensing and so forth. And when she met with, and this was a pretty wise analyst, because when she met with the provider, she realized that what the real issue was is the provider was just dead tired. She had not taken any time for herself or not enough time. And it was starting to show. It was really starting to show. And she gave her the wise advice that she needed to take some time off. So if you think that might be you, I have a burned out quiz that you should go take. It's free. I will come back and I will drop the link to that. It is also in the blog post, so you can go over and check the blog post out and click the link for the burnout quiz to find out if you're burned out and what level of burnout you're at. I've said before, I was burned to the ground. I was burnt. I was tired. So your question is, how did I know that it was time to move on? There were moments, and I've told only close people um, that I was in the bathroom in the morning crying. I was tired. I didn't want to hear another baby cry. I didn't want to change another diaper. I was so burned out. And maybe if I had had therapy or the foresight to take some time that I obviously needed off then, maybe I would have come to a different conclusion. But I had enough of those moments to realize that I needed to start thinking about transitioning to something else. That's how I knew for me. And then when I started to plan what was going to be next and decided that I wanted to still support this industry and providers, and Thriving Childcare was born, then, and I got excited about that, I knew. I knew that it was time. So go over, if you think that might be you, go over and take the burned out test, the burnout cues quiz. I can't talk. Quiz. And see if it gives you some insight. Take it step by step because you do need to, it would be best if you planned. It would be best if you didn't just one day say, I quit, I can't do this tomorrow. Don't bring those kids tomorrow. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. That's not the best way to handle this. But if you think you might be burned out, overwhelmed, or that you might be ready to start thinking about your next chapter, then go over and take that burnout quiz, and see where it leads you. Okay. All right, number two. I'm trying to get through these questions. I know we're already over the hour, but hopefully you'll stick with me. I'll try and get through them as fast as I can. And then we can come back to this. Let me know, like I said in the comments, if you want to talk about this more, if you want more from my story or more, if you have questions. All right. So number two says, what was the hardest part about walking away from your daycare? And how did you deal with it emotionally and financially? So, as I already said, I had the foresight to do one of the smartest things I've ever done in my life, which was to get into therapy. Um, because the hardest part was I felt a sense of mourning. Okay, I felt a sense of mourning, kind of like. Let me get some water. Hold on. Excuse me. Kind of like when I went back to work after I had my children all those years ago, and that first day of work, I was crying at my desk because I missed them. I felt like that. And that's why I felt like I needed to get some help. So that's how I handled it emotionally. And it was one of the best things I could have ever done. Even if you don't get into some formal therapy, reach out to other providers and see if, especially if you can find some like me who have transitioned out of the industry. And I really think that that will give you the kind of support that you need to make your plan. If this is something you're thinking about doing or you're wanting to do or eventually know that you will do. Okay. Um, Financially, just like when the pandemic came and I was talking to providers about having that emergency reserve plan, this is another incidence where having a reserve can set you up for what's next because it can provide that financial support to fill in that gap for the next thing you do. But again, this is why you need a plan. You need to know what financially do you need to, that you still have obligations for, that you can plan for ahead of time. Maybe that means saving up a whole year's worth of income from your childcare. And that might sound like a daunting task, but not really. You can do that. You can do that, especially if you have something like a 5-year plan where you're thinking about transitioning. So that was how I handled it. But everybody's situation is different. Everybody's business is different. So, and if you want, I'll come back and leave a link to the Emergency Reserve Fund so you can see how to use that tool as well. That would be a really good tool providers who are considering transitioning, considering their next chapter. So I'll come back and I'll leave that link as well. All right, number 3. It says, Adrian, I've been running my childcare for over 15 years. Congratulations. And I love it. But I also feel called to do something more. How did you figure out what came next for you after your childcare? Well, I've kind of talked about that already. Um, and I love how you say that you feel called to something more. Um, you ever go into your closet, and I'm doing this now, you guys. I'm doing this now. And you look at your clothes, your outfits, right? And some of them are so outdated when it comes to your taste, and there's no reason for them to still be in your closet because you're never going to wear them again, right? And it's because your style has evolved. Your style, your your aesthetic has changed, and those outfits no longer speak to that. They speak to the old you. They speak to um, what you were. It's the same thing when it comes to your life and your business life. It's okay to want to do something different, something more, because you're not the same person that you were 5, 10 years ago. Most of us do evolve. We grow, we stretch. And with that can come a whole new perspective on what we want for our life, what we want as far as our entrepreneurial aspirations, what we want for our home life. What we, you know what I mean? When I started my childcare business, I still had um, a high schooler. Now, all these years later, we're empty nesters, and things have substantially changed in our life. And that's what happens with anyone's life. So why would we think that we're trapped and we can only do this one thing? That's not true. You have a lot of skills, and in that blog post, click that link that's in the comments below. In that blog post, I get into a lot of the skills that you have used in your childcare journey, and how they can what do you call it? Um, how they can transition. I guess I'm thinking there's another word, but transition to doing something else. They're interpretable in another way. So go check that blog post out. But definitely, you you can make a change if that's what you want to do. You should not feel trapped, and I would say that it's not healthy for you to feel trapped, not for yourself and not for the business, right? I knew it was time. I had just about this much patience left for for interacting with the parents, and I was honest with myself. I was honest with myself that okay, I had done this thing and I had done it well, but it was time. It was time to make that change. It was time to do something more, something else, something else. So that's how I figured out for myself. But go over to that blog post. I give you a lot of tools in that to start thinking about how to figure out what comes next for you. So check that out. Like I said, the link is below. All right, next question, and I only have 2 more, so hopefully I can get done before I go long. Okay, it says, did you have a backup plan or business lined up before you closed your doors, or did you figure it out as you went? I'm nervous about the unknown. Okay, well, I've already said today that I did have a plan. I have been planning for years before I closed my childcare doors. So I did have a plan, and I would say most people, it doesn't matter what business they're in, if they're thinking of leaving, um, to do something wholly new, most of the advice would be to have a plan, right? To not just jump out. Maybe like they'll say, let's say you have a side hustle that you're doing now, to be doing that before you jump out of your 9 to 5, right? Before you jump out of your main gig, it would be wise to know what's next if you haven't already started it. It would absolutely be wise to do that because you more than likely do have some financial obligations that are going to continue no matter what. So I did have a plan. Like I said, I had started Thriving Childcare 2 years prior, so that was up and running. The planner had even been put out during that time. So, but that was my path. Go over to that blog post that I keep referring to now, and find out what your next your next plan would be. What is your business plan? If you are going to start a new business, if you're going to get into a different line of work, if you're going to get into a 9 to 5, what is best for you? And that post will help you start to get a clear vision for that. Okay. All right. Last question. And maybe I'm just gonna go 15 minutes over today. I haven't done that in a while, so give me some grace. Okay. Last question says, Adrian, you talk about life after childcare. Can you share what your transition looked like step by step? I'm curious what the real exit strategy might look like. Um, like the previous question, the unknown can be nerve wracking. You can be nervous. We're nervous about everything. Trying a new recipe even can be nerve wracking, especially if you're serving it to someone other than yourself. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Maybe it means for you to make it less unknown by doing what I said a moment ago, developing a plan for yourself, finding out what skills you can transition to something else that you would enjoy. This is not about getting out of the trenches of childcare and going into something you hate. It's not. That's why the planning comes in, right? So when you talk about what my transition looked like, and I've been pretty transparent today and told you about the steps that I took and what that looked like. Your steps will look different. And it might be an unknown today, but the more you plan for them, it becomes less unknown. And when it becomes less unknown, it becomes less nerve wracking and less scary. So if you're thinking about making a change, like I've said, this whole episode was about, then start to dig into what you would want to do. The questions that I've put up throughout the week, and there'll be more because I hear a lot of people, a lot of providers wanting to explore this more and not wanting to feel stuck and not wanting to feel that this is the only thing they can do when they are clearly ready to do something else. So I hear this more. We're gonna talk about this more. I would love to get your perspective on this. Um, there's another post that I did about a year ago, I believe, and it's there's a link to it in this post today as well, called the exit strategy. Check that out as well, because you do need a plan and a strategy so that it, number one, you don't have to be nervous. Number one, you don't have to be nervous or as nervous trying something new, getting sunsetting your business. And that is empowering. It's empowering. Whether you get in therapy or not, whether you talk to a provider that has transitioned, um, It's about what's next for you. What's the best next step for you, right? I talk to my clients, my counseling clients about this. What does it look like for you? I've given you my steps to probably just give you some insight into what's possible. But again, your steps, your plan, your journey, even up to this point, it's completely different than what mine was. And that's how it is for everyone. So finding out, digging and doing the research, making a plan for what is best for you is what needs to be done now. Okay? All right. Now I promised not to go too long, but I'm going to take the next 30 seconds and tell you what happened about my deconfidence moment in high school and how it ended up. Okay? So last year, I think it was last year, I went to lunch with a good friend of mine that I've known since I think since grade school, not high school, but grade school. Excuse me. Let me get some more water and then I'll finish the story. So we went to lunch at one of my favorite spots here in the valley, and I don't know what we were talking about. I have no idea. I have no idea what we were talking about. But high school days came up, and I told her about that moment that I wanted to cringe and die because somebody in the back of the room said "ugh" when I walked in. And you know what she said? She said, "Adrian, are you kidding? That was me." I was just kidding around. I was like, "You've ruined my life." No, I'm just kidding. I was like, "What?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "See, you never know how things affect other people." And I wasn't mad at her at all. I actually had to laugh at myself for letting something like that affect me for so many years. I'm glad to have closure. I'm glad that it wasn't one of those popular people that did that to me. I am glad. But I was scarred. I was scarred. And she had no idea. I had never mentioned it to her. I guess. Probably because, like I said, it was traumatic for me. It was really, it was trauma. But it was her the whole time. So see how perspective and mindset really plays a part in so many things we do. But I'm going to let you go. I have gone on today, but I will say this. If you want to talk about this more, first of all, go over and check out that blog post. This blog post I wrote specifically for you. Go over and check that out. You'll find a lot of good information on that. But there is more to come because I hear you. I hear so many of my fellow providers wanting to talk about this, and this is something we can and should talk about it. Okay, we should. Um, and listen, if you are enjoying this show, then I want to tell you about the Rise and Thrive Club. That is our providers only club membership where I share resources. You get early access to new products. You also get supported through counseling with me, private counseling sessions with me, and you get it more equipped to grow your thriving childcare business. So if you aren't ready to quit, then I'm here for you too. I'm here for you too. And you don't have to do it all alone. All right. So click the link in the comments below to learn more about the Rise and Thrive Club. I would love to see you on the inside. And you can try that. You can try the club out for just $7 for a 1 week trial. So go over, see what we're about, join us, stay with us for a week, decide to stay with us forever, decide it's not for you. Go over and try it. I think it will really benefit your business. Okay, so click the link in the description below. And I really want to thank um, those who joined me live. Denitra, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And until next week, take care, stay safe, and keep thriving. My name is Adrienne Bradley, your host for the Daycare Q&A Show and founder of Thriving Childcare. And I cannot wait to continue this journey with you next week. Until then, keep thriving. See you next week. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on today's episode of the Daycare Q&A Show. I hope it gave you clarity, encouragement, or even that little push you needed today. If you're looking for more support, tools, and real-life resources to help you grow your childcare business, I'd love to invite you to join us inside the Rise and Thrive Club. It's our member-only community just for childcare providers, where you'll get access to a growing library of done-for-you tools, exclusive training, monthly live Q&A calls, and so much more. And the best part, you don't have to do this alone. So whether you're just getting started or you've been in the game for years, there's a place for you inside the club. You can join us right now at thrivingchildcare.com/joinRTC. I can't wait to see you on the inside. And hey, if you like this episode, make sure to give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and share it with another provider who could use some encouragement today. Until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep thriving. I'll see you on the next episode.